I'd just like to let everybody know that I've got a brand new list channel called The Gamepad. Over on there we make gaming based list videos ranging from creepy to just randomness. So if you're into that kind of stuff, then be sure to go check it out. But even if you're not, be sure to go subscribe to it just to get up and running. Now on to the video. Sometimes judicial systems make mistakes, and due to this, innocent people are convicted of crimes they didn't commit. In this video, we will take a look at some of the most notorious wrongful conviction cases in history. Number 5. Steven Avery. This man's case received much attention after Netflix released their feature documentary about him called Making a Murderer. For those that have watched it, you will already know what happens to this man, but for those who haven't seen it, this is his story. Steven Avery from Manitowoc, Wisconsin, served 18 years in prison for a wrongful sexual assault charge. Before he was charged with this, he was involved with quite a bit of legal trouble. Let's take a look at his legal trouble. At the age of 18, he was convicted of burglary and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. For this, he served 10 months. Then, at the age of 20, Avery along with a friend were both convicted of animal cruelty. This was after they poured gasoline over Avery's cat and launched it into a fire. For this, he was sentenced to 9 months in jail. In 1985, he was charged with assault after he tried to run his cousin off the road at gunpoint. He said he done this in order to try and stop her from spreading rumours about him. For this, he was sentenced to 6 years. He served this concurrently with the sexual assault charge. Now for the sexual assault charge. In 1985, Steven was convicted of first-degree sexual assault and attempted first-degree murder. He allegedly tried to murder a woman called Penny Bernston. He served 18 years in prison, and the entire time, he claimed he was innocent. In 2002, Avery's case was examined by Wisconsin's Innocent Project. They had managed to prove that Steven was not guilty. They were able to do this as a result in improved DNA testing. He was released from prison a year later as the project were able to gain exoneration for him due to the DNA evidence. The DNA had showed that a man by the name of Gregory Allen had committed the sexual assault. He was already in prison serving a 60-year sentence. There has been many speculation that Steven was set up by the Manitowoc Police Department and judicial system. People believe he was set up because of his previous convictions and because his family's name had a bad reputation. Along with this, his cousin that he tried to run off the road was married to a Manitowoc County Sheriff's deputy. In 2005, Steven was arrested for the murder of a woman called Teresa Halbach. He was convicted 2 years later and was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Teresa was scheduled to meet Steven on October 31st, 2005. She had also gone missing on the same day. A month later, Steven was charged with her murder. This was after her charred remains were found in his salvage yard. Once again, people believe he was set up. This was because the jurors on the case had been relatives of people in the Manitowoc Police Department that were involved in the previous case. However, people believe he did commit the murder. Ken Kratz, an attorney working on the case, had revealed that Steven told his previous cellmate that once he got out, he was going to build a torture chamber to torture and kill women. There were said to be several diagrams that illustrated the chamber. The attorney also said that Steven once told his cellmate that fire was the best way to dispose of a body. Some people believe that Steven did commit the murder, but only because his previous lengthy conviction drove him insane. Number 4. Kirk Bloodsworth. This man was the first American ever to be placed on death row. Kirk was a former Marine who lived in Maryland. In 1985, he was convicted of sexual assault, rape, and first-degree murder of a 9-year-old girl. Although 5 eyewitnesses placed him at the scene, he claimed his innocence the entire time. In 1992, while in prison, Kirk began to read books and study DNA and how it can be used to clear people of crimes. In order to try and prove his innocence, he pushed to have the evidence against him tested for DNA. The only DNA evidence linked to the case was semen on the victim's underwear, but this evidence was lost. However, after Kirk's inquiry, the evidence was found in a paper bag in the judge's chambers. After testing the semen, it showed that Kirk was not a match. It had matched a man by the name of Kimberly Ruffner. During the time of the match, he was serving a 45-year prison sentence for rape, burglary, and attempted murder. A little bonus fact, Kimberly was living in the cell located directly underneath Kirk's while they were in prison. In 1993, Kirk was released after spending almost 9 years in prison. This was with 2 of them being on death row. As of today, he is a program officer for the Justice Project. This project's goal is to help combat corruption in law. There is also a Kickstarter-funded film being produced about his life. Number 3. Alfred Dreyfus. This man was a French artillery officer who was convicted of treason in 1894. His case became one of the most tense political dramas in French history and is now known as the Dreyfus Affair. In 1894, the French army's counterintelligence got information that the German army had been receiving classified information about artillery parts that the French had been obtaining. The only people that knew of this information were high-ranking army officials. The French army had come to the conclusion that a spy must have been providing the information to the Germans. Suspicion came upon Alfred and he was arrested for treason on October 15, 1894. He was stripped of his army rank and was sentenced to life imprisonment. He was also humiliated as French soldiers placed him in front of spectators, cut his insignia out of his uniform and then broke his sword. All while this was happening, spectators were shouting abuse at him, calling him a traitor. 2 years later in 1896, information broke out that the real traitor was a man by the name of Ferdinand Esterhazy. After much information was covered up about this by the French army, a major scandal broke. The press revealed that Alfred was innocent. Ferdinand was found not guilty and quickly fled to England before any further actions could happen. Alfred was still not set free, and this caused another scandal which insinuated that this was because of Alfred's Jewish background. This led to the press making claims saying that the French army hated Jews. Due to public outcry, Alfred got a second trial, but once again he was found guilty. However, due to the public's reaction, the President of France issued Alfred a pardon and he was released from prison in 1899. His army rank was reinstated and he received a promotion. Number 2. James Bain. In 1974, James was convicted of breaking and entering, kidnapping and rape. This was after a 9-year-old boy stumbled out of a forest naked and gave police Bain's first name and also stated that he had seen a red motorcycle. James had owned a red motorcycle. After being found guilty due to an unfair trial, he spent the next 35 years in and out of many different prisons. During his time, he claimed that he was innocent and asked for DNA testing on 5 occasions, but was denied each time. In 2009, the Innocent Project of Florida decided to take a look at the case and help James. After they continued to put pressure on Florida's judicial system, they finally agreed to DNA testing. After running the test, they proved that James was innocent after spending 35 years in prison. He was then released. He had went into prison at the age of 19 and was released at the age of 54. Number 1. Dr. Sam Shepard. Sam Shepard was a doctor born in Cleveland, Ohio in 1923. In 1954, he was convicted for the brutal murder of his pregnant wife. On July 3, 1954, Sam and his wife Marilyn were entertaining guests at their home in Ohio. After Sam fell asleep in the living room, Marilyn escorted the guests out. She then made her way upstairs to the bedroom and went to sleep alone. During the early hours, Marilyn was bludgeoned to death and the entire bedroom was covered in blood. The murderers had also taken several items from the home, but they were found stashed in a bag within shrubbery behind the house. According to Sam, he'd awoken in the middle of the night and ran upstairs because he heard his wife screaming. Once he reached the bedroom, he claims he saw a figure, then was knocked unconscious. At 5:40 AM, he came to and phoned a neighbor begging them to come to his home. The neighbor went to the house and phoned the police. After police investigated the crime scene, they had come to the conclusion that Sam had murdered his wife. Although he had strong defense based on his injuries caused by the intruders, he was still found guilty. On December 21st, 1954, Sam was found guilty of second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison. The trial and case were highly publicized in the media. In 1966, after many years of appeals, he finally got a retrial. This was because it was found out that the original jury had used reports from the media to make their verdict. Sam was acquitted and was released from prison. After his release, he became a professional wrestler where he used the nickname The Killer. This probably didn't help his cause. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to go check out my new gaming based list channel called The Gamepad, as it is now up and running. Goodbye.